My name is Juniper. I am the managing producer for Feldenkrais Access, and I am so happy to be here with you all for the first class of Your Pain-Free Back with David Zemach-Bersin. We're also joined today by Raz Ori, who is a Feldenkrais practitioner in Tel Aviv. He's a Feldenkrais trainer. And Anastasi Siotis, who is a Feldenkrais trainer candidate, and he is in Greece right now. The three of us are here to help. If you encounter any confusion throughout the course of the lesson today, please type your questions into the chat. If you're joining us from Zoom, if you're joining from Facebook or YouTube, you can type your comment or question into the comment section of those platforms, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. I will be periodically spotlighting Peggy Honig, who is a Feldenkrais assistant trainer in Silver Spring, Maryland, and she will be doing the lesson in sitting. So if you need visual guidance about how to adapt the lesson for a sitting position, you'll be able to see how she's doing the lesson. I will also be periodically spotlighting our team of video volunteers, our Feldenkrais practitioners who have very generously offered to do the lesson along with you, and you'll be able to see how they engage with the lesson, and hopefully that will provide some visual guidance for you to supplement the verbal guidance that David is giving you. If you are joining us from Zoom and you have your camera turned on, please have your whole self in view so that David can direct his instructions to you. And if you don't wish to be seen, that's totally fine. Just please. Oh, it says we're not coming up on YouTube. Alina.
We are, Juniper.
We are.
We're
okay,
streaming.
great.
Yeah.
So sorry. Okay, great. Wonderful. If you don't wish to be seen, please press the stop video option in your Zoom menu if you're joining us from Zoom, so that David can see the people who have their cameras turned on. And that is it from me today. I will hand you over to David. Oops. David, you are muted. Oh, hold on a sec. Go for it.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Juniper. And thank you to everybody who's here today to support this project of bringing the material that I wish to convey to you today. This is the introductory class for our new series, Your Pain-Free Back. And as some of you know, I've been a Feldenkrais teacher for nearly 50 years. And in that time, I have worked with many, many people with back pain. And I'm very happy to say I've been able to help almost every single one of them. So back care is something that I have given a great deal of thought and study to. I'd like to say a few words before we start. And firstly, I'd like to acknowledge that everyone's back pain is different. Everyone's back pain is unique. In other words, there's no one answer that works for everyone. Some people have mild back pain or even infrequent back pain. Other people have chronic or debilitating back pain. In some cases, the back pain is localized to a specific area, a small area, while for others, the back pain can refer, which means that it is there's a nerve root which is so irritated that there's nerve pain down into the buttocks, or it can go down into one leg, sometimes both legs, and sometimes even cause numbness in the feet. So we can experience back pain in our lower back, in our middle back, in our upper back. In other words, we each have a very particular individual experience of back pain. Now, regardless of which part of your back bothers you, and regardless of why you think you have back pain or what you've been told about your back pain, I am very confident that this series of classes that I am organizing and presenting to you will help you. Now, why? Why am I so confident? Because what we're going to do is bypass all of these individual differences and focus on what is common and universal to all of us. In other words, we're going to improve ourselves. We're going to improve the way our back is organized in relationship to the rest of ourselves, in relationship to the ways that you move, that you sit, that you stand, that you walk. And I believe that nearly all of you will find that this approach will almost assuredly alleviate much of your back pain and discomfort. In fact, in our first lesson today, we will focus on some of the most fundamental movements of our back and spine. These are movements that are universal to each one of us. We would, without these movements, you'll see, we wouldn't be able to stand. And I think that even in this first hour together, because these movements are so fundamental to us, so primary, I think that in this first hour, you will feel a noticeable improvement in what we would call your basic organization. In fact, I'd like to show you an image that Professor Ori will bring up for us, and just to illustrate an idea that I feel is ought to be part of our most basic education, and yet is not. Now, here you have a representation. One second, Rob. Here you have a representation of a person. Obviously, it's a diagram. It's a symbol. But what we see is we see a representation of the muscles of the front, side, and back of this illustration, right? This movable illustration. All right. Now, the muscles of the back are not fully there, and that's just fine. That's just fine. But what I'd like to tell you and explain is that the muscles of the back that attach to the pelvis are the most powerful muscles of our entire self. The muscles of our back are the most powerful muscles of ourselves. Now, and that's what these muscles of the back are called anti-gravity muscles. They allow us to come up away from the earth, away from the ground, and be able to stand upright. The muscles of the front of ourselves are thinner and less powerful. The muscles of the front, you don't need to remember any of this, but you might find it interesting enough that you spontaneously remember it. The muscles of the front of ourselves are called flexors. the back muscles are called extensors. Extensor just means anti-gravity muscles. When the flexors contract, it tilts our body forward. So this includes the, go ahead, Roz. This includes the abdominal muscles. That's right. So you see the muscles of the front are getting shorter. They're contracting. That's what contracting means. The muscle shortens towards the center of itself. Now, just a minute. Can you stay forward, Braz? Now, a little more. Yeah. Now, if the back muscles were not working hard to counterbalance this representation, and if this representation was alive, you can see it would fall forward, wouldn't it? It would fall on its face. But we don't. And why not? Because our back muscles are working hard to counterbalance our weight going forward. Now, if you now transfer that idea to being alive and moving as we do every moment, well, now you have a situation where these muscles of the front of ourselves, the flexors, and the muscles of our back are working in an extraordinarily beautiful reciprocal relationship every millisecond. Every millisecond, there is an alternating of contraction and a minor lengthening or relaxation. Can you bend the figure backwards? Backwards? Excellent. Now, if you were to do that movement, you can easily imagine, that's right, stop it. Can you easily imagine that the muscles of the front of yourself are having to lengthen, to get longer in order to allow the muscles of your back to contract? See if you can imagine that for a moment, that you're tilting backwards. So you can almost feel it if you tilt backwards, tilt yourself backwards a little bit, you can feel the muscles of your back contract, and the muscles of your stomach or abdomen, chest, they don't really relax and lengthen. Why? Because they're having to counterbalance your weight going backwards. It's so beautiful. It's so elegant. It's so simple. And yet it is exactly this reciprocal, harmonious, reciprocal relationship between the muscles of the front of ourselves. I'm saying it simplistically on purpose. The muscles of the front of ourselves and the back of ourselves. This reciprocal relationship is not working harmoniously. And that is what causes the strain and the excessive effort that leads me and you to feeling, oh, my back is tired. And if I continue in that way, unabated, uninterrupted, well, then I might say I might wake up in the morning with back pain. And if I do that for a year or 2 years, I might say, oh, I'm having this pain go down my leg. But it is this reciprocal relationship that has become disturbed. And so in this first lesson we do today, we're going to work with exactly this. All right. So thank you for your attention. Before we start, I would just like to say a few words For those who have never done Feldenkrais lessons before, just a word of explanation for you. Feldenkrais lessons work very differently than any conventional exercise that you're familiar with. In fact, we denote the difference right there by calling what we do lessons and not exercises. Why? Because our brain is learning something. Our brain is learning something new and useful, and we construct the lessons in such a way as to communicate with your nervous system, with your brain. The movements are easy and simple, and we combine that with a process of you attending to your own experience. That's how simple it is, and that immediately stimulates what we call the neuroplastic capacities of your brain to change and learn and improve. So I'd like to just give you a few tips for how you create the conditions for, I would say, maximizing the benefits of Feldenkrais lessons. And that is by doing the movement slowly, only doing what's comfortable for you, by avoiding pain of any sort. A lot of times when we have chronic back pain, we become accustomed, we develop the habit of doing everything that we need to do in spite of the pain, in spite of the discomfort. And this is a cross that we just feel, we become accustomed to it. We feel this is our cross to bear. And so I'm going to ask that just today, you see if you can avoid doing anything that provokes discomfort. Even, and I use the word discomfort on purpose, which you might feel is a little less than pain, but I would like you also to avoid even the slightest bit of discomfort. I'll remind you of these things as we go along. And if the movement, any movement causes you the slightest bit of discomfort, you need to find a way of doing less. If you are confused, perplexed, how to do less, you write in your question and somebody from the staff will help you. We're here to help you, and we want you to have a successful experience. All right. So just one last word. Feldenkrais method is not a medical approach. I'm not a medical practitioner. And if you have acute or chronic back pain, of course, you should seek medical advice. All right. And as Juniper mentioned, I just want to reiterate, she will be highlighting people doing the lesson. And if you get confused and or lost in some way, just take a little look at the screen, and hopefully that will give you the information that you need. All right. Thank you so much for your attention. And let's get started. Today's lesson is going to be done lying on your back, and primarily so at some point in the lesson, about halfway, we'll still be on our back, but we will be putting the back of our hands behind our lower back, just a little bit. But if you have just injury to your shoulders, discomfort in your shoulders, and you feel that putting your hands, one hand, the other hand, either way, behind your lower back is uncomfortable, I suggest that you get a small towel, and can even be a dish towel, a hand towel, and you use that instead. And if you don't have access to, if you anticipate right now, you feel that you are going to have some discomfort, then do get the towel. If you don't have access to towel, really don't worry about it. You can do the entire lesson successfully, I promise. And you'll have access to this recording. And actually, we'll tell you, you can have access to this recording immediately through YouTube, and you can do the lesson later today or tomorrow. Again, I would even recommend it with a towel. All right, so let's begin. And I'm honored to be with you, and I hope you'll enjoy our lesson. Please lie on your back, and your legs long, or your knees bent if there's something uncomfortable for you. And if your neck is uncomfortable, you can put some little thin padding behind your head if you feel that you need to. But otherwise, you'll see that as the lesson goes on, it's probably preferable to have nothing behind your head. But if you feel discomfort, of course, we want to do what we can do to minimize discomfort, because that's distracting from your attention. And now, please put your hands on your lower abdomen and just spend a moment feeling the rising and the falling, the spontaneous rising and falling of your lower abdomen. In other words, without exaggerating your breathing, but just seeing if you can allow your lower abdomen to expand when you inhale and to recede as you exhale. In other words, we could call this a resting breath, way of breathing, restful way of breathing. And now just take a moment to bring your attention to your lower back. Still keeping that movement of your lower abdomen in the background of your attention. And notice, is one side of your lower back closer to the floor than the other? And now slowly move your attention up your spine, the back of your spine, just feeling where you can detect that your spine is touching the floor. Not asking you to do anything complex. You just feel what you can feel easily. In other words, there is no right and wrong way to feel. And you'll see that as the lesson progresses, your perception of yourself will change. You can feel there's somewhere in the middle of your back, that's where your spine is pressing to the floor quite clearly. That's right. And this is true for all of us. Then, above that, there's a place where the contact of your spine begins to recede, leave the floor. And that's a natural curve in our spine. That's called the cervical curve. That's right. Very good. And then, of course, there's the weight of the back of your head on the floor. And then there's the contact of your right shoulder blade with the floor. And your left shoulder blade. And you might feel that one shoulder blade is more in contact or less in contact with the floor than the other. Notice if that movement of your lower abdomen has changed. Even though we're not moving, we are moving our attention, aren't we? And that movement of attention involves our whole self. And so you might find that something about your breathing has changed. Good. Now, please bend your knees so that your feet are standing on the floor. And interlace your fingers and bring your hands behind your head. That's it. Now, of course, if you were just to rest like that, your elbows would be close to the floor, wouldn't they? Or maybe even resting on the floor. And now bring your elbows, both elbows, toward your face and gently lift your head just a small amount until you feel that there's some resistance. And then you stop and you bring your head back to the floor. And then you let your elbows go back to the floor. That's it. So slowly, you bring your elbows toward one another comfortably, and that's right, you use your hands your arms to lift your head so the muscles of your neck can relax. And it's a small movement. It's a very small movement. And as I said, as soon as you feel resistance, you go back. All right, now please stop and bring your arms down along your side. And I just want to underscore for you that we want the movements that we do in this lesson to be minimal. It means very small. Again, this is not an exercise and has nothing in common with exercise. neither in process nor in the goals that we have. Very, very different. And you'll see that the smaller you make the movements, the more you will maximize the communication with your brain. Now put your right hand behind your head, only your right hand, and allow your elbow to come nearer to your face, and slowly, just slowly, lift your head using your right hand, and only lift a little bit until you feel some resistance, and then you stop and you go back. And see if you can now exhale as you lift your head. That's right. And let your elbow go back to the floor between each movement. One of the tricks that we have is to create the conditions whereby each movement is being done as if for the very first time. So it means we need our attention to be fresh. And now feel as you lift your head, where can you reduce the effort? Your effort. Maybe in your legs, most certainly in your abdomen. And again, you exhale as you lift your head, and maybe you feel that you just get your head off the floor and already there's resistance. That's right. Good. Please bring your right arm down and just observe the contact of the right side of your lower back with the floor. Has something changed there? Please bend your knees if you straightened your legs. Put your left hand behind your head. That's right. And again, bring your left elbow away from the floor toward your face. And again, slowly, just slowly, and I'll explain why slowly, lift your head and exhale. That's right. Now, the reason to go slowly, which I said I would explain, is that the slower you do the movement, the more time you have to feel yourself. And it's this attending to yourself, paying attention to yourself, that mediates our communication with our brain. What happens to your lower back when you lift your head? That's right. All right, please rest again. We don't need to do the movements many times because the improvement is coming about through the medium of your attention and not the movements. Just observe that rising and falling of your lower abdomen. The contact of your lower back with the floor. Please bend your knees, both knees, stand your feet, separate your feet about shoulder width apart, interlace your fingers and bring them behind your head. And now, let me say first what I would like you to attend to, pay attention to, as you bring your elbows toward one another and lift your head again, see if you can feel that some parts of your spine come away from the floor when you do that, and other parts of your spine go backwards toward the floor. You feel that? It's very simple. The vertebrae that are closest to your head are the ones that come away from the floor. And then in the middle of your back, you feel those vertebrae come very close to the floor. All right. Now, take your left hand out from behind your head and put your left hand on your chest, on your what's called your breastbone or your sternum, with your fingers pointed downwards or even a little to the right if that's uncomfortable. So you just gently have softly, your fingers are on your sternum, and which is the bone in the middle of your chest. And now as you gently lift your head and exhale, use your left hand to depress your chest toward your pelvis. That's it. That's it, exactly. Slowly. And again, you let your elbow go back to the floor between each movement. Feeling where you can do less, where you can relax yourself, where you can allow the floor to support you. And you pause between each movement. We're not interested at all in repetitive movement. We're interested in seeing how combining attention and movement potentiates your brain in a very, very healthful, particular way. Beautiful. And please, you can keep your knees bent, but bring your arms down along your side and just observe if something again has changed in the contact of your back with the floor. Isn't that interesting that so few movements, and yet the change is very noticeable? Maybe even your right shoulder is lying on the floor differently than a few minutes ago. Bend your knees. Separate your feet shoulder width apart. That's right. And now, of course, put your left hand behind your head and your right hand on your sternum, the pads of your fingers pointed downwards. That's right. The four fingers pointed downwards or to the left if that's uncomfortable, and relax your elbow and just slowly help yourself, so to speak, so that as you lift your head, that's right, you depress your chest, and you find that immediately you can feel that the movement of your head, the feeling of weight of your head becomes a little lighter, doesn't it? That's right. Just what's easy. Exhaling as you do that. Now, you continue and feel what happens in your lower back when you lift your head. Would you say my lower back goes away from the floor, or my lower back goes closer to the floor? You feel. Good. All right, please rest. Bring your left arm down along your side and your right. And just again, observe for a moment the feeling of yourself. Not asking you in some analytical way, but is your lower back closer to the floor? Is somehow that movement of your lower abdomen, I don't know, clearer to you or easier to feel? Think of that illustration, that anatomical illustration that we looked at. When you lift your head, it's easy to conceive. If you think of that illustration, it's easy to conceive that the muscles of the front of ourselves are getting shorter, and thus the movements of the back of ourselves are lengthening, because we are lying on the floor and we're not having to protect ourselves from falling. It's an interesting idea, isn't it? That our back muscles are able to lengthen much more easily than if we were doing the same precise movement in standing. It's actually all the difference. Now, let's look at a little detail that for some may be actually very significant. Interlace your fingers and bring your hands behind your head. And now slowly, as you lift your head, as we've been doing, as you exhale and as you feel where you can let go internally, notice, where do your eyes go? Do your eyes go forward? Do they go up? Do they go to the right or to the left? Now, feel what happens to the lifting of your head if you move your eyes up, not forward, but up, as if you were looking toward the top of your head. What happens to lifting your head? You feel it changes the lifting of your head completely, doesn't it? And do you feel that resistance sooner if you look up with your eyes? Of course you do. But often we're using our eyes in a way that's dissonant with our intention. And now go ahead and look down towards your feet when you lift your head. And you notice, is that different? Does your head remarkably become lighter? Of course it does. And now a few times, lift your head and look with your eyes towards your left foot. So you lift your head slowly as you exhale, and with your eyes, you look towards your left foot, and you can feel that your chin also goes a little to the left. Because at every moment, and this is a very important point for us, we act as an integrated whole. Even if the parts of ourselves are acting at odds with each other, we are still acting as an integrated whole. And you find that simply by improving these basic what I called earlier fundamental relationships, our whole self improves. And stop for just a moment, leave your hands behind your head, but just observe. Can you feel that just by orienting your eyes toward your left foot, something changed in the left side of your lower back? And now do the same thing, but orienting your eyes toward your right foot. Slowly, feeling where you can soften your chest. What does that mean, soften your chest? I mean, you feel if there's somewhere in that you can orient your attention internally and feel where can you let go of effort? Where can you allow your back to go backwards towards the floor, to be more supported by the floor? All right. That's very, very good. Please stop. You deserve a little rest. Bring your arms down along your side. Stretch out your legs. And just feel yourself already in these 20 minutes or so. Would you say that you're lying on the floor a little differently than when we started? Your spine, your lower back, that movement of your lower abdomen, your shoulder blades. Would you say that your shoulder blades are lying on the floor more symmetrically than when we started? All right. Please bend your knees and now slide the fingers of your right hand behind your lower back. That's right. And again, I just would like to repeat what I said before we started the lesson. You can do everything that we're doing now without anything behind, without anything behind your lower back. Or you can put a little towel behind your lower back. But it's your lower back, not your middle back, not your pelvis. And now slowly, just tilt your pelvis a little bit forward, as if you were rolling your pelvis the tiniest bit, or your lower back, the tiniest bit over the back of your right hand. That's it. Just slowly, you tilt your pelvis a little bit away from your head, meaning your pelvis tilts downwards, as if your tailbone is going a little closer to the floor. Your tailbone or your coccyx is tilting a tiny bit toward the floor. And then you just let go, and your pelvis will spontaneously return to what we could call your neutral. And you pause for a moment, and then you do the same thing. Now, bring your right hand out and just from behind your lower back. And just take a moment and just feel, has that changed something in the right side of your lower back compared to the left side of your lower back? Now slide the fingers of your left hand behind the left side of your lower back, just a little bit, not a lot. It can, as I said, it can be just the fingers of your left hand. Your palm is facing the floor, of course. That's right. And now slowly just tilt your pelvis a little bit away from your head. If you like, you can put your right hand on your pelvis and you can feel, am I tilting my pelvis toward my head, or am I tilting my pelvis away from my head? And then you just allow your pelvis to return and you rest before doing the movement again. Just slowly. You'll see that just this way of attending to ourselves is telling your brain that there's something of value here, something of import to you. That's right. And your brain will begin, you'll see, to improve things at a very, very primitive, fundamental level. That's right. Okay, take your left hand out. Just bring your attention to your lower back. Interlace your fingers behind your, and bring your hands behind your head. And now, again, make a very, very small movement, very slowly. You lift your head, but what I'd like you to pay attention to is what happens to your pelvis when you lift your head. If your most trusted best friend were to have their hands on your pelvis so that you might get some feedback from that, would they say they feel your pelvis tilting toward your head or away from your head? Don't do anything intentionally. Don't contract anything intentionally. You'll see that good organization, harmonious organization, is a natural capacity of each of us. It's when we begin to contort ourselves in unuseful ways that we get in trouble. Now, bring your hands out from behind your head. Put your hands on your pelvis. And you feel, just lift your head a tiny bit, just a tiny bit on your own, and feel, would you say that your pubis, your pubic bone, the place where the two halves of your pelvis come together, would you say that that tilting, that bone, your pubic bone, is tilting toward your head when you lift your head, or it's going away from you? And then you realize, unless you inhibit the movement of your pelvis, that it's as if your nose and your pubic bone are coming toward one another, isn't it? All right, let's just rest for a moment. You can stretch out your legs. Again, observe the movement of your lower abdomen. Of course, it's not for the purposes of making you feel as if something is so important about your lower abdomen. It's that that rising of your lower abdomen is reflecting the movement of your diaphragm. And when your diaphragm is free, is when you can have better, harmonious, reciprocal relationship between the muscles of your back and front. But you'll see, we'll get there. Now, please bend your knees, stand your feet, and again, put the fingers of your right hand behind your lower back. That's it. That's all. And now slowly tilt your knees, both knees, a little bit to the left. Just slowly. You can feel that the right side of your lower back comes away from the back of your right hand when you do that. You feel that? That when you tilt your knees to the left, again, a small movement, not big, but you can feel that your lower back on your right side comes away from the back of your right hand. As you exhale, of course. Good. Bring your right hand out. Again, if you have to do it in a way that's comfortable for you. As I said, if you have had a serious injury in your shoulder joint, your clavicle, your collarbone, it may be that putting your left hand or right hand behind your lower back is uncomfortable. And I'd rather you not do it at all than do anything uncomfortable. Please put the fingers of your left hand behind your lower back and tilt your knees, of course, to the right. That's it. Nothing difficult, nothing challenging, nothing uncomfortable. Beautiful. Please bring your left hand out from behind your back. Good. Now, of course, you can do that movement that we were doing a moment ago without anything behind your lower back. So see if you can do that. See if you can tilt your pelvis just the tiniest bit down away from your head, as if again, that trusted and loving friend, we're just tilting your pelvis a little bit down so that what? So that your lower back comes away from the floor. Not, again, not a big movement, a small movement, a delicate movement, a discreet movement. That's it. But if you were to put your hands on your pelvis, which you may, you would feel, oh, my pelvis is tilting a little bit down, away from my head. You feel that? And the more you can relax your abdomen, the more you'll feel that your pelvis can tilt easily. It's the unnecessary contraction now of the muscles of the front of ourselves that limits that movement. No, don't, it's not the movement you want to increase. It's the quality with which you do it that we want to improve. And so rather than having your attention on the movement, you have your attention on feeling where you can do less. I know it sounds crazy, but you'll see that the less effort you use, the greater will be your improvement. Very good. Please stop, stretch out your legs, rest for a minute, just observe the feeling of your back, your shoulders. Why would the quality of contact with the floor of your shoulders change? It just shows you what an integrated whole we are. That you improve one basic function, and really it's your entire self that improves. It's really an extraordinary thing. Extraordinary that none of us were taught this when we were young. All right, please bend your knees, separate your feet. Put your right hand behind your lower back. If you can comfortably put a little more than your fingers, you can. Again, no strain at all, only what's easy. And now slowly tilt your pelvis a little bit away. And then tilt your pelvis a little bit toward your head. We're talking about a very discrete, small movement. Say, for example, if somebody came into your room, they'd hardly know what you were doing. They wouldn't be able to see it unless they put their hands on your pelvis, and then they would feel, oh, they're tilting their pelvis a little bit away from their head, and then a tiny bit toward their head. And of course, if you just think of your pubic bone, you just think of your pubis, which is the most southerly point on the front of your pelvis, you can feel that that little place is tilting away from you and then a little bit toward you. You hardly need any effort at all, don't you? You hardly need any effort to tilt the pelvis a little toward your head. That's it. And see if you can begin to feel that it's not a movement of your pelvis at all. It's your whole self. And that each time you tilt your pelvis a little bit away from yourself, the right side of your abdomen opens up. And your spine is pulled a little bit downwards. Not that you do anything. It's just that in order for your pelvis to tilt that tiny bit, that infinitesimally small amount, your spine has to be pulled a little down. All right, take your right hand out. Of course, you can rest anytime during the lesson. Really, your priority is to take care of yourself. That's more important than doing the lesson, doing the movements. Bend your knees, stand your feet. Put the back of your left hand behind yourself. But again, just a little bit that's comfortable. That's right. It's okay if it's just your fingers. And now do the same thing. Tilt your pelvis a little bit down and a little bit up, but so small. It doesn't restrict your breathing. Your stomach remains relaxed the whole time. And you can feel each time you tilt your pelvis down, the left side of your abdomen opens up and gets longer. And see if you can feel that your spine is cooperating. Even if you can't feel it as well as you would like to, and you will be able to feel it as well as you like to. But even if you can't, you'll find, oh, yeah, I think maybe my chin is moving a little. Maybe you feel it all the way up to the back of your head. What could be a more basic movement than what you're doing right now? Just tilting your pelvis a tiny bit. This movement is involved in everything that we do, every action that we do. And the more available and reciprocal it is, meaning that pubic bone can tilt both away and toward. That's right. And that movement is integrated all the way up to the top of your head. You can feel something changes in the contact of the back of your head with the floor. All right, bring your left hand out. And just observe. Would you say that you feel somehow, I don't know, easier, nicer, more pleasant than an hour ago? Well, actually, we only started about 40 minutes ago with the lesson. And can you feel that each time that you inhale, your pubic bone tilts a little bit away from your head, doesn't it? And each time you exhale, can you feel? There's a tiny reciprocal movement in the opposite direction, meaning that your pubic bone tilts a tiny bit toward your head. And then when you inhale again and your lower abdomen expands, you feel that? Your pubic bone is tilting. Please bend both knees. And now try putting both hands behind your lower back. Your fingertips are facing one another Or if you need to, you can put one hand on top of the other, but you don't need to do that if it's uncomfortable in any way, in the slightest way. Again, your hands are behind your lower back, not behind your pelvis. That would be uncomfortable. And now go ahead and slowly tilt your pelvis away from your head and toward your head. And away from your head and toward. And now the next time that you tilt your pelvis away from your head, just a little bit, just what's easy, stay there and just breathe into your lower abdomen a few times as you inhale. In other words, you stay with your pelvis tilted away from your head. That's right. And you allow your lower abdomen to expand. Of course, it's easier to expand your lower abdomen. It's easier for your diaphragm to move fully, to work fully, when your pelvis is tilted a little bit away from your head. That's right. All right. Please now bring your hands out. And now just slowly put your hands on your pelvis and just slowly you tilt your pelvis a little bit away and a little bit towards your head and a little bit away and a little bit toward your head, and just observe if you can feel that little rocking movement of your head. Sorry, that rocking movement of your pelvis reflected in your head. Just easy, just simple. Doesn't matter whether you hold your breath or you breathe easily. You can choose. You want to hold your breath, you can hold your breath. I don't recommend it. And now make it a smaller movement, but quicker. Kind of pop, 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 pop. And see if you can feel again. Oh, yeah, my head is moving. My chin is moving. That's it. Isn't that interesting? Huh. All right. Now, one last time, stretch out your legs. You'll see learning and change, improvement happen in small steps. But if they're the right steps, you'll see if they're essential steps, you'll see that the change will make your life easier, more pleasant. You feel your whole self is lying on the floor differently. And we did so little. Please bend your knees, stand your feet, slowly roll to your side, and slowly just take your time, come to standing, to sitting, and then to standing. That's nice. And just take a moment to stand there. Just stand where you are, as you are, not thinking of anything special. And just feel, is the top of your head closer to the ceiling than an hour ago? And now put your right hand behind your lower back, just like we were doing in the lesson. And those of you for whom it was uncomfortable, maybe it's a little easier to do it in standing. That's right. And now just look up toward the ceiling, just easily, no big stretch, and move your left elbow. Oh no, it's your right elbow backwards. Just move your elbow backwards as you look up, which of course increases the arch in your lower back, doesn't it? And of course, that arch is very, very important. It's essential for a well-organized back. It's essential for a reciprocal, healthy relationship between our flexors and extensors. Switch your hands. In other words, put your left hand behind your lower back. And just a few times, that's right, you just look up towards the ceiling, just easily. That's right, no strain whatsoever. Just nicely, simply. That's right. Of course, your stomach comes forward if you let it. Don't be afraid. And let your stomach come forward, and then you'll see, oh, I can see a little higher. Whereas if you keep your stomach contracted, you'll find, oh, my spine. Where's my spine? Where's the flexibility in my spine? It's not. It's disappeared. Maybe put both hands behind your back and just look up. And you say, oh, maybe there's some relationship between what we were doing in the lesson and looking up in this easy way. That's right. Very, very nice. Now, I would just beg for your attention for another moment, and please walk around, and of course, with your hands free, and just walk around and observe. If you imagine, you can just look at your horizon and see if something feels different in your legs, the lightness or the heaviness of your legs, in your hip joints, your neck. That's right. And I'll leave you with one last little cue. Can you feel that the back of your head is a little more back? That the back of your head is a little more back compared to when we started. The last time, the last time you reflected on the back of your head. All right. Thank you very much for coming. It was an honor to be with you. And I hope we'll see you next week. Each week we will concern ourselves with a different aspect of a healthy, well-organized back. And you'll see that you will feel the difference. And ciao.